Hastings Mayor Sandra Hazlehurst, thank you so much for your time today to chat with Hawke's Bay app. It's been a week like no other. Can you give us an update on how the recovery is going as far as you know and in your area of responsibility?
Well, it has certainly been a week. It's catastrophic going out and seeing our communities, particularly our rural communities. Our urban communities have 97% power back on. People are getting back to their lives and their business. But our rural communities, which is the economic powerhouse of our region, have been impacted hugely. And to see the devastation out there over the last few days, going out and having a look and meeting our community, it's just been incredibly sad.
You mentioned earlier about being in a meeting last Thursday, and did you, in your wildest imagination, think you'll be dealing with this now?
So the Thursday before the event on Tuesday morning, we had stood up emergency evacuation centres. We had stood up the group, the Civil Defence Emergency Management Group. We were watching Cyclone Gabrielle very, very closely and getting the advice about how big the impact would be for us, for Hawke's Bay and for us, the Hastings district. And you know, on Sunday night we had a big regional leaders meeting the week before, two nights before the event. In preparation, we expected a lot of rain. We certainly didn't expect the wind like we saw it, and it's just been, in terms of the well-being of our people, our community. It's been absolutely devastating, bigger than I ever would imagine.
Yeah. Because I was going to say, you know, how bad is it out there? Because some people don't realise that a place like Eskdale is actually part of Hastings.
Yes.
So have you had a look there, and what can you tell us about that?
So parts of our district have been incredibly hard hit. Whirinaki has still without power. We have been taking water trucks there. Out of our 7 small communities that we've replaced our bores and water supplies, new water supplies too, that was the only one that was hit really badly. So, but Esk, in terms of the whole valley and seeing the decimation of all the trees, the apple trees, and the rising of that area, it's just I'm just without words really.
Yeah.
But I have been out into the wider community, and Puketapu, Pakawhai, Omahu, Waiohaki, all of these areas alongside our waterways have been hugely impacted.
Yeah. And what are the priorities now? Are we still in the rescue and recovery stage?
Yes, we're still in a state of national emergency, and so pretty much me and my team have a foot in each camp at the moment, both recovery and response, which is responding to the emergency, and recovery, how we're going to rebuild. So we're working in both of those areas at the moment. So I know that today is our big drive to get all of the household debris picked up from people's homes. They've lost everything. They've lost all of their personal possessions, and we have to get that waste away from their homes.
Yeah.
And I know that they'll feel much better when we've done that, and we've got a site where we're going to process it. Our landfill was compromised, the weighbridge was broken, the kiosk came down, so the devastation to areas of Omaranui Road where the landfill is, there is 3 metre high silt that has been cleared off the road, and the apple trees are sitting in silt right up the trees. So the devastation, and a lot of our urban people don't understand the extent of the damage to our wider hinterland and primary sector industries. And it wasn't until we went out quite early to Twyford and saw the devastation to one of our councillors of Giraffe, and met with all of our growers there. And since then we've met with MPI to look at recovery response and funding, which will go up live this afternoon, which I'm very, very pleased to hear about, to give people some reassurance about that they can get some revenue, and now helping our business community and the wider, for us, it's about rebuilding 28 roads, local roads that are currently closed, and fixing that access and connectivity to our rural communities.
Yeah.
The Rissington Bridge will Bailey Bridge will go up and hopefully be effective from this evening, working with our team and the Army. So all of these things, that's our recovery also response. So we're working in two places at the moment, and we can't stop until we know that we've got everybody safe.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, tragically, there have been fatalities, and there's a lot of, as always, speculation during this time that there are more, more people out there who have passed away, and that. Do you expect the death toll to rise? And tell us a bit about the unaccounted for people. Are these people who are just can't communicate, or is there genuine concern for them?
So firstly, my heart goes out to all the families who have lost loved ones, and this is a tragic event, and as far as we know, we don't know what's to come, but we have to just remember and acknowledge the people who have lost their lives. And then we acknowledge the people who have lost everything, who don't have insurance, who have lost their homes, lost all the contents to their homes, and we acknowledge their loss, because that is what most people have, is a home and all their prized possessions in that home. So they have lost that. Some people have lost their employment, and some people don't have anywhere to live. And seeing people in our evacuation centres who have come in from Pakawhai, who'd been rescued off the roof just with the clothes they stood up in.
Yeah.
So we don't know exactly how many people, and that's really important for police to have that communication, that if you found your loved one, then please tell us.
Yeah.
And that's really key for us to be able to understand that everybody's accountable. We don't want to leave anybody behind, and so we need to know if you're safe and well. But in the early days, on Wednesday last week, working out of the emergency centre, Civil Defence Emergency Centre here, and people just coming up to me and saying, "Sandra, can you find my sister?" Sure. Getting texts and emails saying, "I can't access, I can't get to find out if my children and my children, my grandchildren are safe." And they're emailing me and texting me from Auckland and various parts of the country. It was a horrifying time, because we've never understood what would happen if we had no internet, cell phone coverage and phone coverage, and us to have to go back and think about how we're going to tell people how to keep safe. We had to get the radios cranked up, everyone get a transistor and listen to all the news reports on the old school radio, get the flyers out into the letterboxes, get the communities set up into groups and meeting at the town hall. Suddenly our town hall is across. We've got 30 town halls became full of community meetings and still are going on today in Pātoka, Rissington, Puketoi, and we've got amazing leaders who have stood up through this time and led their communities out of this disaster.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned earlier about communications and that, and the telecoms and that being under the bridges, and obviously the bridges were hard hit. Is that something as a community and as leaders you're going to address?
Absolutely. So, it's how we learn and how we build back better, and part of that will be understanding the risk of power, and substations and where they should be placed.
Yeah.
And these places have been built, way back, 100 years ago, and rebuilt in the same place. But the impacts of climate change and the changes of our environment, where should those places be? And not having power for some of our community and still haven't got power, it has just been devastating. So we have 8 bridges out that are devastated. Wow. That we have to rebuild. The bridge has been assessed on the coastal road between Hastings and Napier this weekend for 3 days. And so if we can get that bridge up at Waitangi going again by Aototo there, then we'll get a better connectivity between Hastings and Napier. And at the moment we're asking our community, if you don't have to travel between Hastings and Napier, please don't. Emergency services are struggling to get through to our hospital. Yeah. So we need to just be mindful that we've got one access between Hastings and Napier. But in terms of building back better, this is the big conversation, understanding the risks of the telecommunications, understanding the risks of power substations and transforming stations, understanding where our power will come from in a disaster, making sure that every rural community has a generator, has fresh water, has a community leader that has a Starlink communication that we can say, hey, you guys okay? What do you need? We'll chopper it in. And that's the important stuff that we need. And the Starlinks have been helicoptered into all our isolating rural communities, isolated people, and they have been a lifesaver in many instances.
Yeah.
We're so blessed here, we've got a rural community board who have stood up and they're elected members in each of those areas. And each day they're having community meetings in the rural areas to identify what needs to go into those areas: medical supplies, animal food, animal medicines, health and well-being of the community. Is everyone well and safe? And understanding the needs of each of those communities. And now we've got those links. But in those first few days, we relied on our rural community. We relied on their amazing resilience just to be able to manage through.
Yeah. Now, just talking about the houses that have been damaged and that, do you have a sort of a rough number or even an exact number of how many homes in the region have been red stickered? And where are all these people? Where have they gone?
So the Waiheke whānau, and there's probably 70 homes there, and our inspectors were there yesterday. Our building inspectors are out now across our district, and they started last week in Havelock North, and then they have gone to Waiheke in the last few days, and they're just travelling across the district to understand the enormity and how many homes we've lost. So some people have been red stickered, some people have been yellow stickered, means they can go back. I've been out to visit the maraes and they have been damaged, and people are pulling off all of the wet interior linings and rebuilding now. So there is a lot of great work going on, but for people to have that sort of certainty and understanding what it means for them, we're trying to get to that as fast as we can, and I haven't got an exact number yet, and the work is still being undertaken.
Because I was speaking to Nahiwi Tomana the other day, and he was saying that, we could have in these evacuation centres people living there for months. Is there any other plan to find alternative accommodation, and is that even possible?
Well, we've had a Hastings place-based housing plan for the last 3 years, since 2019. We've vacated now 5 motel units from people living there with their whānau. So the last thing we want to do is have people now for another 3 years going back into living in motels.
Yeah.
We have had the first conversations with the Minister of Finance, Grant Robinson, on Sunday about, we've identified homes in Hastings that have been built that haven't been purchased yet, and the government helping us with those homes to get whānau back into a home. So we've got a short-term understanding of what motels are available, which we wanted to be short-term. We've got big opportunities in areas like Flaxmere, where we've got the infrastructure in for housing, because our council's been working on that for the last 3 years. It's been our number one priority, along with water. And so how we use that land now in Flaxmere, it's got all its services in. That was done last year, and how we get homes onto that land in Wainako, around the Tiaranga marae that's there, and get people back into homes. So there are some homes at Wainako, there are some in Hastings, and so we're doing that big stock take now and asking the Crown if they can help us and purchase those. But in the longer term, we will have to backfill in some of our motels, but our plan is that we get homes built, get them built well.
Yeah. So you're saying the government buying these houses, so effectively state houses again, but for a certain period?
Government owned, long-term leasing, good models like that, where people have, and they're all nice new homes, and so having that opportunity of getting people back into homes.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier about, there are a lot of learnings to come from this and that. Is there anything you think your council could have done in terms of even shoring up infrastructure or stuff like that? You say there has been an ongoing project to sort of mitigate the effects of the cyclone before it happened?
Nobody knew the enormity,
Yeah.
and particularly with the winds as well as the rain. But infrastructure is our lifeline, and our roads and our bridges are our lifeline. And we have had a plan here with our local bridges to replace. And when I think about what we did with fixing up our Rissington Bridge, spent a lot of money doing that. It was one of our bridges on our list to do. And it was fixed to a 1 in 500 year event.
Wow.
And it came down.
Yeah.
And we had a big opening, a celebration, the bridge being strengthened to manage earthquakes, but the volume of water that came down from the ranges and fed into our main 3 rivers and all its tributaries, nothing could cope with it. So the Rissington River, for example, went from a 50-metre river across to 90 metres, so nearly doubled in size.
So that's sort of build back better.
Yeah,
that's
build back better is our
That's going to be
mantra.
the mantra.
Yeah, it is. It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
So where housing will go, where people will live, how we rebuild, and our orchardists are already having this conversation at the moment, where productive lands will be best.
Yeah.
And so when you think of the stop banks and the flood protection, that's one of our biggest risks at the moment, is understanding our flood banks are compromised, and driving all around the district the other day and seeing these big gaping holes in our flood banks. We are very vulnerable, and that's one of our big risks. And I'd like to see, while we have the Army here and the Defence Force, that we get this response to our flood banks immediately, because our communities are very vulnerable.
And could we see some roads moved? And I even saw at Craigie Range the cycleway is just completely gone there as well. Are those sort of things going to be looked at, and maybe concreted if possible, and roads moved where possible? Do you have a plan for that?
Well, so just assessing all the assets and all the damage, and the team were out last Wednesday in helicopters and driving across the district to identify where everything should be repaired and how we get better connectivity. We have a very, very distributed rural community. We have, 7 rural communities, and so, Tipahui, Te Haratau up the top, right across down to Waimarama, and seeing how everybody's been impacted.
It's a big district.
It's a big district. It's 5,000 square kilometres. And so, what we produce on our plans, our primary sector, feeds our region, feeds our economy for Hawke's Bay. And so, making sure that we met with MPI yesterday to understand how we get some support and how we reassure our primary sector and our horticulture industries that, where we are going to build back better, that they're part of this conversation. And I'll be meeting with MPI and all of our growers and our primary industries next week, and our leaders, to actually have a conversation about how we do this better.
Yeah.
And we need to bring them in quite quickly and reassure them that we're onto a recovery plan.
Yeah. Now, just talking about rates, which obviously are what keep the council going, are there going to be rebates and amnesties and that for people who just can't pay their rates? Their houses might have gone. Are you being quite sympathetic?
Absolutely,
about that?
we are. Yes, and that notice has already gone out about homes that have been lost to our community, about how we manage that. We've just on the back of COVID here, and we've just been through nearly 3 years of COVID response, and to stand up again and manage this, our community hasn't really, when I think of some of the things that have been cancelled and haven't been able to action through COVID, and now we thought 2023 was going to be our year for normality and getting back to people being able to come again to Hastings for Horse of the Year. These sorts of things that we hoped that, our economy was going to be back to a better place. But we have to do small steps, and we have got amazing people here. Yeah. We've got incredible industry and stakeholders, and we have to reassure them that we're going to look after our people.
Yeah. And nearly finished, but just Horse of the Year is that off for this year? Is that going to go ahead or is it cancelled?
It's cancelled,
Yeah.
the Horse of the Year, and the reason why our big events are cancelled is because they bring in 5, 10, 15,000 people, maybe 20,000 for something like the Mission concert.
Yeah.
So we haven't got the accommodation for
No.
our visitors. We have to look after our own people who are
Yeah.
hurting at the moment, and hopefully when we get back to normal and get some more accommodation up and running, then we can revisit and have our events.
So other events like the AMP show, obviously further down on in the year, and those sort of things, do you see them not going ahead either?
Well, we haven't got that far to
Yeah.
October, but in the short term, we definitely needed all the events to be
Yeah.
cancelled and just focus on the well-being of our community now.
Yeah. Now, on a personal note, were you and your family affected?
No, my family's all very well,
Oh,
but never did I think of my time as the Mayor of Hastings that I would be declaring a civil defence emergency.
Yeah, yeah. So it's been tough for you, has it?
Well, it's better people.
Yeah. Yeah. And how are you coping with this? Because from what I've seen wherever I go, you're there and you've been there for a while and then you're zipping off somewhere else. Are you sort of getting some time to actually just rest and that as well?
I will soon, not yet.
Yeah.
Not
Still
yet.
got a job to do. Yeah?
Still got a job to do, and when I see all that waste picked up from outside people's homes, and that they are feeling better, then we can have a day off.
What is your abiding sense of this whole situation? What is the one thing that you take from it in this whole trauma and that?
Oh, it's the enormity, but it's the learning,
Mm.
and we've got a big opportunity here. And how our forefathers developed and built our place, and how people settled along our waterways and our coastlines, how planning has allowed to develop over the years. These are the big hard conversations now. We know that the how we adapt to climate change, we have to bring our community with us.
Yeah.
But it's about a better Hawke's Bay. It's about a more resilient Hawke's Bay. It's people understanding that you need a transistor radio at that level,
Yeah.
right through to people understanding where they need to grow their crops, manage their land, us planning for where homes should be, and all of these things. There's just so much learning, but we have to take this as an opportunity to make a better place.
Can we get back to some sort of normality?
Yes, we will. Yeah, we will, absolutely. And it's just small steps. It's one step, and every day we get closer to that. And so it's amazing to think that one of the ministers said to me on the Wednesday, "Sandra, your city is open." And it wasn't, and it was, well, isn't that great? Because they had power and they were able to function in their offices and open their shops, and the cafes were busy.
Yeah.
And so people have been able to, and some people more than others. But we have the devastation in our rural community. I'll be up in a helicopter this afternoon with Mayor Kirsten and the chair of the Regional Council, Hiniwai, and to assess the enormity of this. We need our government partners. Our recovery is going to be it's a national recovery.
Yeah.
It's led. We have made our message very clear to the Crown that we want a regionally led recovery. We've got the right people. We've got the expertise, we know our place, and we want to build back better.
Sandra Hazlehurst, Mayor of Hastings, thank you so much for your time speaking to Hawke's Bay App, and all the best with the tough road ahead for you and your council.
Kia ora, thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.